my first startup in the space, which was Bounty Hyve. It opened at the beginning of 2018. You were able to basically just use your time and your skills to earn some of that crypto instead of having to buy it. That's something that becomes much more interesting to a lot more people than before. Quickly became one of the biggest platforms because we reached at the time probably like 200,000 users, and we had something like 200 projects running on the platform.
What do you think the most demanded role is for freelancers over the past 12 to 24 months?
And those three are namely developers, art designers, and copywriters. I would probably say that actually copywriters beats both of them.
I would think developers. I would have always assumed it's developers.
I know. We assumed the same thing, actually. But it turned out that you need copywriters for a lot more things than you'd expect.
When you're in Web3, you have to be expected to really dive in and commit to it, like your life depends on it.
I would say that my wish is, within 5 years from now, anybody who wishes to get a job, regardless of what they know, regardless of where they are, they can just go on Hive and within 24 hours, have a way to make some money and just live, basically. I actually sometimes look at the podcasts you guys do when I'm eating.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Tudor, that's such a huge compliment. Thank you. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Decoded by Diverse. I'm your host, Dina Matar, and today we have Tudor Stomff, the CEO of Hive. Welcome, Tudor Stomff. It's great to have you here on Decoded. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Thank you so much for inviting me, Dina. I'm doing okay. It's quite a bit cold right here where we are. And, I spent most of my day working, to be honest. So this is a good break from that.
No? Okay. Well, I'm glad to offer that break to you. So where are you based?
I'm based in Bucharest, Romania. This is where we have our main office and where most of the people working on Hive are based as well.
Oh, nice. Oh, so it's nice and cold for you guys in Romania. I'm in Dubai, so it's a little bit colder than normal, but not cold for anyone else. Tudor, I'd love to hear a little bit about yourself, what your background is, and how you got into Web3 to start with.
Okay, sure. So that's a bit of a long story because it's been a long time since then. Okay, right. So first of all, my background, I'm a developer and an electrical engineer. So that's what I studied at university. I didn't really profess that much, to be perfectly honest, as I went pretty straight away into Web3. First time I actually joined the industry was basically 2013 when I started just mining a bit and buying some tokens, etc. And then around 2016, 2017, I started becoming more active on this forum called Bitcoin Talk. It was a forum created by Satoshi initially. So that's where most of the people part of the Bitcoin core were gathering and discussing different things. You can actually even find the old messages of Satoshi on the forum, and you can go and read them. It's pretty fun.
Wow.
It's also like where one of his most famous replies comes from. Like, if you don't understand it, I don't have the time or the patience to explain it to you, in reference to somebody asking, why is Bitcoin worth anything? Anyway, so back then on the forum, there was this thing called bounties. And so basically projects would allocate a portion of their tokens as a reward for people to do some specific tasks, like go and post something on Twitter, do a translation of the white paper, write an article, do a video, things like that. Even Ethereum actually had a bounty on Bitcoin Talk to translate their white paper and such. And so initially I started doing this sort of organizing the bounties for people, because at the time there was a very big problem with a lot of the so-called bounty managers just basically stealing the bounty. Like, people would participate and they would do the jobs, but then they would just take the whole pool and run away. So that became a real problem. So I first wanted to try it out just to see how it works on the forum. So I did that a couple of times. And then after seeing that, this was something people really wanted, I basically opened my first startup in the space, which was Bounty Hyve, which was, like a platform to just be able to do bounties automatically and have everything escrowed, so people wouldn't have that fear. It opened at the beginning of 2018, I believe, like January or February, and it quickly became one of the biggest platforms in Web3 in terms of users and such, because we reached at the time probably like 200,000 users. And we had something like 200 projects running on the platform. So after that, that gave me the idea to basically start Hyve, because we were able to see that there were an incredible amount of people that were willing and open to work for crypto, but didn't really have the opportunity to do so in the past. Because one of the things that was very, unique for me to see and hard to understand was that most of the participants in the bounty campaigns we had were not actually young people. The vast majority of them was middle-aged mothers from less privileged countries, who were basically doing these bounties because they were able to do this as a sort of a side gig and earn some extra money to just go and pay for things, especially because one of the cool things about blockchain was then the pay was uniform. So it didn't matter if you came from a higher earning country or a lower earning country, which, obviously translates into a disadvantage to people coming from countries like the US, but translates to an advantage for people coming from countries such as Africa or Southeast Asia, because the rewards for the bounties could be even up to so much as like a normal monthly salary or more in the country where they were from. And so that was a pretty cool thing to see. And it also gave us the idea of just trying to do something that's more generalistic, to allow people to just work with one another without, having the fear that maybe their money is going to be, is going to disappear, or maybe the work is not going to be completed, etc. And so that's pretty much how I got my start in the industry.
Interesting. So then tell us a little bit about Hyve. So you had already started something with a similar name before, and then you've evolved it into creating Hyve Works, or how did that go?
So that's correct. It's pretty much an evolution of what Bounty Hyve was. At some point in 2020, 2019, 2020, we decided that Bounty Hyve in its current form was not going to be something very long-lived, mainly because of the fact that there were two things happening simultaneously. The first one was that the general quality of the vast majority of projects was going down. And so this was a problem, as the opposite of the problem of Bitcoin talk started to happen. Namely, we would launch a project and people would do their work, but then the token would be worthless.
Yeah.
So that was the first problem. And the second one was the fact that everything was very limited to a specific set of actions. It was probably like 8 or 9 different campaigns, and with each one having specific tasks, and that was it. You didn't have the flexibility of being able to say, hey, I want to reward people that make the best designs for my project, the best art, or something that went beyond the specific tasks that we had envisioned. And so because of that, we just decided to do Hyve, where basically instead of us posting the projects and vetting them and etc., it's a user-centric platform, just like Facebook, where basically everybody can post what they want to, and they just have to split it into a category, like a job, a task, an offer, like on Fiverr. Now we have like digital items, meaning, downloadable content, not NFTs, things like icon packs, website templates, mobile apps, things like that. And so you can just basically post something like that, and then the money goes into a smart contract escrow. So you don't really need to trust anybody, not even, us as a company, because it's just like a public smart contract that stores the money for every transaction. And so that's what we started doing. We opened Hive, I think, in 2020. I think in October of 2020. It's been 3 years now. And so, basically we just started doing that. It was a lot harder than anticipated, to be perfectly honest, because Bounty Hyve was a very niche platform. So it didn't need that many features or that many complicated interactions. But with Hive, we quickly realized that, it's a lot more work than initially anticipated. But at the same time, I also think that at the end of the day, as long as we manage to pull this off, it's going to be a lot more rewarding, basically.
We've seen the Web3 market grow exponentially in the last, few years. What do you think the most demanded role is for freelancers over the past 12 to 24 months?
Sure. So I would say whether we're talking freelancers or the normal jobs like actual full-time employees, I think there's three jobs in particular that a lot of companies have been looking for. And those three are namely developers of any kind, but mostly, blockchain related specifics like Solidity, art designers, which is a more recent one, and copywriters. I would probably say that actually copywriters beats both of them in terms of numbers. Yeah.
I would think developers. I would have always assumed it's developers.
I know. We assumed the same thing, actually. But it turned out that you need copywriters for a lot more things than you'd expect. Basically, people hire them for social media, for doing their website, for managing a community, all sorts of different things. And so because of that, they also hired a lot more of them. Additionally, I think there's a second mechanism that comes into play, which is the fact that if you hire a very good developer, even if you pay him a lot of money, it's just one person. Whereas with a copywriter, regardless of how well he does his job, there's a very limited amount of material one can creatively write in a single day. And so, I think it's because the process for the developer becomes much more mechanic after a certain point of experience. Whereas with a copywriter, they just basically have to be creative day after day. And so that limits the maximum output they can, create in a single day. So because of that, you have to hire more of them. Like a lot of companies, especially in our space, I would say that they probably have a very close ratio of copywriters to developers.
Interesting. Well, I guess if you put it like that, it kind of does make a little bit more sense. From what I've experienced or what I've seen, for a lot of users trying to find a job in Web3, it's been very challenging. And I think the same can be said for, the other side of the process, which is hiring in Web3. So finding employees has also been quite a struggle for a lot of people. Why do you think there's been such a big challenge when there's a lot of people who really are looking to work in Web3, who have probably most of the qualifications, and a lot of people are looking to hire, yet it's a big challenge from both sides?
Sure. So if I may, actually, I would even venture so far as to say that this is a more general problem and not just a blockchain specific one, in the sense that, you keep hearing on the news things like there's two very antithetic pieces of news that you often hear. The first one being the young people of today don't want to work anymore, and the second one being we're not able to find enough people to fill the spots that we have, right? Like the roles. And then if you want to go a step further, there's a third piece of news, which is AI is going to replace us all. Nobody's going to have a job,
AI. Yes. This is what, I find that point quite interesting, because people say AI is going to take my job. Meanwhile, the first job I'd imagine to be taken would be copywriting. And yet that's the highest demanding position at the moment.
Yeah, because while AI is very good at complementing copywriting, I still think it's not yet at the point of replacing it, at least when we talk about the highest echelons. And also, if I may just make a joke, it's really funny to me that the first job that AI seemed to take was not copywriters, but the job of its own CEO. So yeah.
Ah, yeah. I mean, also for copywriting. So with a lot of people I know actually use their chat GPT and
Yeah.
somehow trained their own like chat GPT into responding to emails and creating any pieces of content that sounds like themselves. So it's someone I know, really smart guy. He's done this. Took him 4 months, but he trained his chat GPT to do that. And I found that so impressive. So you can't even tell the difference between a message or an email that he wrote versus the chat GPT. So I think
Totally.
if that's already trainable, so
Yeah, because ChatGPT has two modes. The first one is just, you insert a query and it just answers to it. But the second one is you basically get an individualized instance of ChatGPT, and you just train that particular instance, and then you get to use it. The advantage of doing that is that you actually end up paying less money per word, because you don't have to include the same amount of instructions every time. So basically, when you go on a website and there's a chat GPT behind, the simplest solution is that whatever you write before the text that you actually write, the website has a certain script that it introduces before your words. And so because of that, they end up paying per number of words. So if they have a script of 300 words and you write 5 words, they actually pay for 305 every time you ask a question. Whereas if you train it, you basically, use a lot to pay for all the amount of words that you actually have to input into ChatGPT, but then only pay for the 5 words that you write. So in the long run, if you plan to, use it extensively, that's probably the cheaper option, but it's also a lot harder to actually train the model that way. Anyway, to come back to the question from before, first of all, I would like to say that I think one of the main reasons why this is happening in the general world, and then I'm going to come back to blockchain, is because there's a very big difference in the expectations that both sides have. Right. So on one hand, the people who are looking for the job, especially the younger generation, they're mostly just expecting to be able to earn a salary with which they can go about their thing, pay their house, have a general, like normal life, basically, not a very big thing. And then companies are mostly looking for people who are very good at their job, but to pay them as less as possible. And obviously, from a capitalistic sense of view, it does make a lot of sense. The problem comes from the fact that there's a very large difference in the amount that somebody makes today and the average cost of things, when compared to 30, 50 years ago, etc. So I would say that one of the main things contributing to this difference between employers and employees at the moment. And now to come back to the blockchain specific question, I think there's 2 more things that come into play when we're talking about blockchain, because in most cases, I would say that the vast majority of Web3 jobs are actually well paid. There's 2 other problems, however. The first one is on both sides again. On the side of the employers, they expect, pretty much like religious dedication from employees, I would say. You have to be on call on the weekends. You have to be on call every hour of the day. Everything you do has to be perfect, because otherwise we're going to get people on the group complaining about it, etc. And so that it puts a lot of mental strain on the people having to work in the industry. And on the other side, even though there's a lot of professionals who perhaps are interested in the industry, they have this imposter syndrome, in the sense of, maybe I don't know enough about blockchain. I don't know enough about, how a transaction works, how blocks are recorded, all kinds of various things, and that makes them be less willing to basically go and apply to a job. And I've seen this firsthand with people who were maybe even overqualified for the job in the industry, and yet they didn't end up applying until, you know, they were basically forced by people around them, just because they thought, you know, but I just don't know enough about this industry yet because it's such a new thing.
Can understand it as well, because at the same time, it's Web3, right? It never sleeps. It's an industry that never sleeps. It's not as if it's like the stock market where, you know, they're closed at certain hours or on weekends. It's a constantly active, you know, industry, including communities, which a company lives and dies by. So when you're in Web3, you have to be expected to really dive in and commit to it like your life depends on it, because it will, right? So I think it is a very difficult, I'd say, dynamic for an employee and an employer when it comes to that, because as an employee, you just want to get your wages and then, you know, live your life. But with an employer, you want someone who's going to dedicate to the company as much as you have, which is very difficult because it's your company, so you will. But if you're hiring someone, you can't expect it. But I mean, it's also, you can say it because a lot of people have done that. You know, a lot of great Web3 companies have been built with that same logic, because the team comes on and they, you know, live for the companies. So it does make, I'd say, a very interesting dynamic for both. So with Hive, you know, what would you say makes your platform different to others? I mean, there's a lot of other job seeking platforms where, like LinkedIn, Glassdoor, Indeed, probably others in Web3 as well. What do you think makes you very different? And why do you think, let's start with, why do you think they have not had that same success with Web3 that they had with Web2 in terms of, you know, the hiring processes? And what do you think makes Hive different?
Sure. So I'll answer them one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Web3 jobs on LinkedIn, I think it's like a boomer trying to make Gen Z memes. And, you know, obviously the result is not really what anybody would like. And so, like, for example, the CEO of Pudgy Penguins, on his LinkedIn profile, he actually has, you know, like a picture of a pudgy penguin, obviously. And he actually got a lot of flack for it. And I never understood it. And like, that just goes to show, you know, in general, the type of crowd that, you know, basically uses LinkedIn. And it's not, you know, in any way like meant to be derogatory or anything. It's just that they are interested in a different variety of things, I would say. They're much more serious, much more less to joke, much more prone to jokes, things like that. And when you compare that with like the Web3 industry, where basically everybody just wakes up and the first thing they do is, you know, you open Twitter, whatever, X, and you say GM, you know, and everybody just answers back GM. Like on LinkedIn, this would never fly, you know, like somebody would write GM and the other guy would be, are you okay? Do you need? And so, yeah, like that's, I think, one of the very first reasons why LinkedIn and Indeed and, you know, very professional, standardized platforms are probably not going to have such an easy time entering into the Web3 market, just because there's such large cultural differences.
They're very corporate.
Yeah, they're very corporate, and that's fine because that's what they target, and they're very good at it, if I'm being honest. But you know, if they want to basically give up some of their you know, user base as a percentage just to appease the Web3 crowd, I'm not sure they're going to be willing to make that trade-off, at least not until it's probably too late to do it. So that's one of the reasons. Now, to answer why I think Hive in particular is different, not even necessarily when compared to like LinkedIn, but rather even other Web3 platforms, so to speak,
Yeah.
is the fact that we actually envisioned Hive to be a very, very open and permissionless marketplace. And what I mean by that is the following. So right now, right at this moment, I believe we support 6 different blockchains with over 200 different payment methods. So basically 200 different currencies. And we're probably adding at least, like 2, 3, 4 of them every week, every month, sorry. And we're probably adding a new blockchain every couple of months. So extrapolating this within, let's say, 2 years, we're probably going to have close to, almost 500 to 1,000 currencies and probably all of the blockchains that are major. And so, first of all, that gives you a lot of possibilities. You are not restrained to use a specific type of blockchain, a specific type of currency. We don't really care about that. We just want to give you the tools, and then you can do with them what you want. Then that extends to a lot of different parts of the platform as well. Because, besides having different blockchains and different currencies, you have different methods of collaboration, which we also continue to add more of them over time. So right now you have tasks for the very individualized things, such as, hey, I want a logo, I'm going to pay $200. You have jobs, which are recurrent. So, hey, I want to pay, $2K a month for the part-time copywriter. Sure. And that's just a recording thing until one of the parties cancels it. Or maybe you have an offer like on Fiverr, like I'm going to do a WordPress website for $200 or the custom theme for $1,000. And you just post the offer and people can come and buy it. Now we have like digital items, which is the most recent one. We're probably going to add in the future competitions and bounties, probably within the next year. So the purpose is to be as permissionless as possible and as expensive as possible, so as to allow people to just work with one another. We're even planning to add some sort of AI agents in 2 forms. So basically, number one, you just go and say, hey, I would like, an easy logo, and I don't want to pay a lot of money, and I want it to be done very fast. So we're just gonna basically use an AI agent to design some logos for you and give it back. And then the second thing is other people are gonna be able to design their own AI agents that are gonna act as actual users. So basically, you can go on the platform and apply to tasks and accept them and then try to solve them, basically. Because at the end, yeah, like, I mean, as an employer, you don't really care who solves your task if it's within your budget and the same time frame you specified. So yeah, our purpose is not necessarily to compete with platforms like LinkedIn or Indeed, but more so rather to simply be the place where people can come and know for the fact that they can choose to collaborate with anyone they want to all over the world in whatever form they want to, using whatever currency, etc. We're even going to eventually add fiat on the platform as well. So it's not just like this very purist view where it only has to be Web3 and nothing else. It's basically, we just want to let people be able to work whenever they want to. One of the things that had a very large impact on me, because I was very young back then, like I was probably like 20 years old, something like that. So this mother from Philippines messaged us like this very, very long email where she basically told us that she's really thankful for this platform because she was able to buy her children new supplies for school. And she was like, she was like really worried about it because she had been trying to do this for months. And the kids were being made fun of at school because, and so for me personally, that was like, honestly, much more than I had ever expected. And it made me realize that there's a vast amount of people all over the world who would very much love to work, regardless of what that work is, because you have to understand This 50-year-old woman was basically doing like tweets and articles for some ICO project back in 2018. It's crazy to even think about. But it didn't matter to her, because at the end of the day, she was able to use that money to make her kids happy. And that's all she cared about. Before that, she didn't have that possibility. Like getting her to, at the time, the other option would have been what? To go on Bitcoin Talk, make an account on the forum, go through thousands of threads. There were at least like 100 new threads a day. Then read through all the roles, submit a form every day, make some comments, etc. It was such a hard process that anybody who wasn't, very, very Web3 centric would have just given up. And so I'm afraid the same thing is happening now, but to a lesser extent, in the sense that there's a lot of people who find Web3 appealing as an industry, but they're not willing to say, hey, I'm going to take my own money from my own job, which, in most cases, is not even paying enough. And I'm going to use that money to just buy some crypto. That's not the first thought of a lot of people who are, working a normal job nowadays. But if you were able to basically just use your time and your skills to earn some of that crypto instead of having to buy it, that's something that becomes much more interesting to a lot more people than before. And so I think that's basically, where we want to go, just basically be this job board for people all over the world to just find, their path, I guess. I don't know how else to call it.
No, I guess that makes sense. One last question for you, Tudor, is where do you see the Web3 job market going in the bull run? Where do you think Hive will be at that stage?
I think every cycle of the market in Web3 has a particular sub-industry that becomes popular. In the last one, we had NFTs. In the one before that, we had ICOs. Between the two ones, we had games. And so there's all sorts of little sub-industries. So I would, this is a personal opinion, and obviously it's a bit biased, but my personal opinion is that one of the next waves that we're going to see in blockchain is service platforms. Or in simpler terms, the Web3 equivalent of different marketplaces we have right now. You're probably going to see an Airbnb, but Web3. You're going to see a Web3 Amazon. You're going to see, a Web3 Uber. All sorts of different services, platforms, and marketplaces. Because at the end of the day, like let's take Bolt as an example, which is like the equivalent of Uber in Europe, right? Bolt takes a 30% pay cut from every driver. Or let's talk about Amazon, which takes a 35% cut of every book sold on their store. If you compare that to Web3, where OpenSea was openly called greedy as a company because they had the 2.5% fee. I mean, that kind of looks like something that needs, a better option, so to speak. Uniswap has a 0.3% fee. And, people made new platforms to compete with Uniswap just to make a lower fee because they thought that was too high. And so there's all these sorts of Web2 industries that I think are not really expecting to be under attack so soon because of these things. But the reality is that Web3 and blockchain technology in general really gives people the opportunity to open new startups and lower the cost and lower the money they have to spend on offering the same amount of service that other companies use. As when Amazon opened in 1999, they actually did the same, because normal bookstores used to take like 80% of the money that an author would take. So they said, oh, we're going to give 35%. And it worked. But the problem is now they're a very bloated company, and it's very hard for them to innovate. When you have 100,000 employees, it takes a long time to propagate a message. And so a startup can just come in, they're going to use blockchain tech, and within 4 weeks have the equivalent of Amazon with 2.5% fee. So I think that's one of the waves we're going to be seeing over the next few years in blockchain, especially because this also has a very specific use case for most of the people. Like, you don't really need to have a token for this sort of platforms or anything like that. And even if you do, it actually has a proper utility. So people will just be using the platforms. A good example of this is actually, I think, Travala, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can just book things with crypto.
It's like booking.com.
Exactly. And it worked out really well because, they offered lower fees, they offered more currencies to pay with, etc. And they also went the same route as us. Like, we actually integrated their token as a payment method. And I think they did the same for us. So they also went the same route of, just offering people different options and letting them choose. So that's my opinion in terms of Web3 in general as to the next wave. So I obviously think that Web3 as a service-specific industry in terms of jobs is going to be part of that wave. But on the other hand, to answer the question about Hive specifically, I would say that my wish is, within 5 years from now, to be able to, properly say that anybody who wishes to get the job, regardless of what they know, regardless of where they are, they can just go on Hive and within 24 hours, have a way to make some money and just live, basically. I would say that's
good.
The primary goal. Yeah.
That's a good goal. Thank you so much, Tudor. It was really great to have you here. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for such a great conversation. I look forward to catching up with you again.
Thank you so much for inviting me once more. It was honestly very nice speaking to you, and it's definitely been, like a podcast with some of the more thoughtful questions I've ever heard. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And yeah, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next episodes you're going to be doing.
Thank you so much, Tudor. Oh, Jeremy, he watches it when he's eating. I love him. He's a fan. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Please stay tuned for more on Decoded. And the thing I hate to say, but would like you to do, like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, bye.